Nathan Chen's latex glove trembled slightly as he reached for the executive coffee service cart outside Olivia Sterling's office. The fluorescent light caught something wrong. The thermal cup's heat seal arrow pointed backwards, opposite to Sterling Enterprises' sacred left-to-right protocol. His heart lurched with the same recognition that had once saved his squad from an IED. From the service corridor, Nathan caught two baristas exchange a subtle finger tap along the lid rim, swap the left glove against SOP, and brush a sleeve across the corner camera for exactly 3 seconds before capping the cup. "Don't drink that coffee," Nathan shouted, his voice cracking as he burst through the mahogany doors. CEO Olivia Sterling's lips were inches from the cup's rim. She froze, gray eyes wide with startled confusion. "Excuse me." Nathan's vision sharpened the way it had in Kandahar when everything mattered. The merger documents spread like fallen leaves across her glass desk. The digital clock's read numbers 53 minutes until forensics swept the building. Her manicured fingers, so different from his work-scarred hands, still gripping death disguised as morning comfort. The heat seals reversed. "Ma'am, someone tampered with your order." His voice steadied. But inside, Nathan felt the familiar weight of choosing between safety and consequence. One wrong word to Sterling's CEO could shatter everything: his job, his apartment lease, his chance at keeping Lily. Security's footsteps echoed from the stairwell. Nathan pictured his 8-year-old daughter eating cereal alone, trusting Daddy to pick her up from school like always. If he was wrong about this cup, she'd spend tonight wondering why he didn't come home. "Who are you?" Olivia's question carried more curiosity than anger. "Nathan Chen, night custodial." He swallowed hard, thinking of Lily's diabetes testing strips, how he'd learned to spot needle marks smaller than pinheads. "Ma'am, I failed to protect someone once. I won't fail again." Olivia Sterling studied his face with the intensity of someone who'd built an empire on reading people. Then she set down the cup with the reverence of someone placing flowers on a grave. "Prove it." The executive floor erupted around Nathan like a controlled explosion. His chest tightened as Marcus Webb, Sterling's security chief, filled the doorway with 20 years of protecting people who mattered more than janitors ever would. "Ms. Sterling." Marcus's radio crackled with voices coordinating a lockdown that could destroy Nathan's life in minutes. Nathan kept his hands visible, feeling the familiar ache of being judged by his uniform instead of his intentions. His daughter's voice echoed in his memory. "You're my hero, Daddy." Heroes didn't get fired for scaring CEOs with wild theories about poison coffee. But Olivia was already reaching for her magnifying glass. The same careful precision she used to examine million-dollar contracts. The office held its breath. Even the ventilation system seemed quieter. "There." Her voice broke like glass. "A puncture mark." Nathan felt his knees weaken with relief and terror. Relief that he'd been right. Terror that someone had actually tried to murder the woman standing 3 feet away. Marcus stepped closer, his badge catching the morning light. "Ma'am, this building goes into full lockdown. Now." The security chief's voice carried into his radio. "Potential poisoning attempt. Executive level? All exits sealed pending forensics." Nathan thought of Lily waiting for him to pick her up at 3:30, her small hand reaching for his after 8 hours of missing Daddy. If this investigation dragged on, if questions led to suspicion, she might wait forever. "How did you know?" Olivia's question pulled him back to the moment that would define everything. Olivia had spent 15 years building walls around her heart. But watching Nathan Chen's hands shake as he examined evidence of her near death cracked something fundamental inside her chest. "The injection point's positioned for rapid dissolution," Nathan explained, his voice steady despite the tremor in his fingers. "Professional work. Someone who understands thermal dynamics and Sterling's temperature protocols." She saw her father in Nathan's protective instincts the same careful way Dad had checked her bedroom locks every night after Mom left. The same quiet competence that had built Sterling Enterprises from nothing. "Mr. Chen." Marcus returned from coordinating building security, his face carrying news that felt heavy. "Your military record shows combat engineering, risk assessment specialization." Lost too many good people to improvised devices, Nathan said simply. Pattern recognition keeps the ones you love alive. The ones you love. Olivia felt the words settle in her chest like stones in still water. When was the last time someone had protected her without calculating profit margins or board positions? The merger votes at 2 this afternoon, she said, her mind racing through implications that made her stomach clench. If I died this morning, Damian Cross assumes interim control. He's been pushing for aggressive expansion. I've been blocking. Nathan's head snapped toward her with the alertness of someone who understood betrayal intimately. Your COO gains power if you're gone. Damian's never hidden his impatience with my cautious approach. Olivia moved to her window, watching Manhattan wake up below, unaware that murder had visited the 42nd floor. He calls me Daddy's careful little girl in board meetings. The phrase tasted bitter in her mouth. Nathan's protective silence felt more validating than any board vote ever had. This isn't external corporate espionage, Nathan said quietly. Someone inside helped plan this. Someone who knows your morning routine better than you do. Olivia realized she was holding her breath, the way she had as a child when Dad worked late and the house felt too empty and dangerous. Nathan watched Olivia's reflection in the window glass, seeing past the CEO armor to someone who understood what it meant to carry too much responsibility alone. Her shoulders held the same tension he recognized in his own mirror every morning, the weight of protecting what mattered most. Your situational awareness training, Olivia said, turning from the window. It's more than basic military, isn't it? Nathan's chest tightened. Lily's voice echoed from breakfast that morning. Why do you always check the locks twice? Daddy. Some habits died hard when keeping people alive had been your job. Explosive ordnance disposal. 3 tours. He kept his voice level. Professional. When you disarm bombs for a living, you learn to spot what doesn't belong. Marcus looked up from his phone call with forensics. EOD specialists don't usually end up in custodial work. The unspoken question hung in the air like smoke. Nathan heard the judgment underneath. How does a trained soldier end up mopping floors? The same way a single father does anything, by swallowing pride and prioritizing what matters. Lily needed stability after her mother died, Nathan said simply. Night shift custodial meant being home when she woke up. Available for school pickup. Sterling Enterprises offered good benefits and flexible scheduling. Olivia's expression softened in a way that made Nathan's throat tighten. When had someone last looked at him like his choices made sense instead of representing failure? How long ago? She asked quietly. 2 years. Car accident. Nathan's voice caught despite his best efforts. Lily was 6. She needed her dad more than I needed a career that mattered to anyone else. The office fell silent except for the soft whir of the coffee machine in the corner. Marcus's radio crackled with an update that made everyone freeze. Security to base. Catering staff member Eduardo Vasquez called in sick this morning. No show for coffee service delivery. Olivia felt something crack inside her chest as she watched Nathan's careful composure when he mentioned his wife. She recognized the practiced way he contained grief, the same skills she'd developed after Dad's heart attack left her running Sterling Enterprises at 28. Lily's lucky to have you, she said, meaning it more than any board compliment she'd ever received. Nathan pulled out his phone, showing her a photo that made her breath catch. A little girl with serious dark eyes and Nathan's gentle smile, holding a hand-drawn card that read World's Best Daddy in purple crayon. She made that for Father's Day, Nathan said, his voice carrying the kind of love Olivia had spent years convincing herself didn't exist in corporate boardrooms. Told me heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear work uniforms. Olivia touched the silver frame on her desk, the last photo of her and Dad before the merger that killed him. My father built this company from nothing. Worked 18-hour days. Missed every school play and soccer game. Told me business was about making hard choices. Sounds lonely, Nathan said with the directness of someone who understood loss intimately. It was. The admission surprised her with its honesty. He died during a board meeting, arguing about a hostile takeover. His last words were about quarterly projections. Nathan's silence felt more comforting than 20 years of business condolences. He understood that success sometimes cost everything worth protecting. The alert changed the room's air. Noon meant they'd lost their buffer. The phrase hit exactly where Damien intended. Non-essential. Disposable. Easily replaced. Olivia felt fury rise in her chest. The same protective anger she'd felt watching Dad's so-called friends circle like vultures after his funeral. Mr. Chen may have saved my life this morning. That makes him essential enough for any conversation I choose to have. Nathan's grateful glance felt worth more than any board vote. Of course, Damien conceded, his voice carrying just enough doubt to plant seeds. Though with forensics arriving and media potentially involved, we should consider corporate liability, employment background checks, security clearances, the usual due diligence. The threat was elegant and specific. Question Nathan's credentials. Imply he was somehow complicit. Create enough doubt to isolate Olivia from the one person who'd protected her without calculating personal benefit. Marcus's radio crackled with an update that made everyone's blood run cold. Forensics ETA now 30 minutes. Catering supervisor confirms Eduardo Vasquez had access to executive coffee protocols. His employee badge shows unauthorized overtime Monday through Wednesday. Damien's expression never changed. But Olivia caught the micro-expression Nathan had trained himself to notice, a fleeting tightness around the eyes that spoke of plans suddenly requiring adjustment. The morning clock showed 8:15. 4 hours until the board meeting that would determine Sterling Enterprises' future. Nathan's fingers traced the edge of the security monitor in Sterling's surveillance room. His EOD training screaming warnings about the 3-second gap in camera coverage during coffee delivery. The kind of precise timing that required inside knowledge and professional coordination. Here, Marcus pointed to the timestamp. 6:27 a.m. Camera 12 goes dark for exactly 3 seconds. Long enough for someone to approach the executive cart without being recorded. Nathan studied the footage with the methodical precision that had once meant the difference between defusing bombs and becoming one with them. The camera didn't malfunction. It was deliberately disabled by someone who understood Sterling's security rotation schedule. The blind spot's too perfect, Nathan said, his voice carrying the weight of experience with calculated destruction. This was reconnaissance. Multiple visits to time the patterns. Olivia leaned closer, her shoulder brushing his as she examined the screen. The contact sent an unexpected warmth through Nathan's chest. When had he last felt the simple comfort of someone standing beside him instead of behind him? Eduardo Vasquez had building access for 3 months, Marcus said, pulling up employment records. Hired through a temp agency. Background check showed clean references. Nathan's combat instincts prickled. Too clean? Professional references are easy to fabricate if you know the right people. He thought of Lily's innocent trust in everyone she met, the way she believed adults always told the truth. Who authorized his hire? Marcus scrolled through digital signatures, his face growing grim. Department approval came through COO Cross's office. Expedited processing due to urgent staffing needs. The surveillance room fell silent except for the hum of dozens of monitors showing Sterling Enterprises' empire in real time. Nathan watched employees arriving for normal workdays, unaware that murder had visited their sanctuary. Olivia's phone buzzed with a text that made her skin pale. She showed Nathan the screen. Heard about the excitement this morning. Hope you're feeling better. Damien? Nathan asked, though the answer was written in Olivia's expression. He's the only one who knew I felt unwell yesterday. Her voice carried the hollow realization of betrayal. I mentioned a headache during our 4 o'clock meeting. Nathan felt the familiar weight of protecting someone who'd already been wounded by the people closest to them. The same way Lily sometimes flinched when adults raised their voices. Even in laughter. Marcus's radio crackled with news that made Nathan's blood freeze. Security alert. Catering staff member reported following facilities personnel in sub-basement, requesting backup. Olivia watched Nathan's face transform as Marcus coordinated security response, seeing past the custodial uniform to someone who'd spent years making life-or-death decisions under pressure. She'd built Sterling Enterprises by recognizing competence regardless of packaging, but she'd never seen protective instinct this pure. I need temporary security clearance for Mr. Chen, she told Marcus, her voice carrying the authority that had built a financial empire. Full building access. Executive consultation status. Marcus hesitated, his loyalty to corporate protocol warring with respect for her judgment. Ma'am, with forensics investigating and potential media scrutiny, someone tried to kill me this morning, Olivia interrupted, feeling strength return to her voice. Mr. Chen spotted what everyone else missed. His clearance isn't a request, it's an executive order. Nathan's grateful expression sent unexpected warmth through her chest. When had someone last looked at her like she'd done something heroic instead of just profitable? Thank you, Nathan said quietly, accepting the temporary badge Marcus reluctantly printed. But I need to call my daughter's school first. If this investigation runs long. The unfinished sentence hung between them, heavy with single-parent arithmetic that Olivia had never had to calculate. The way love required impossible choices between duty and presence. Use my private line, Olivia offered, gesturing to the secure phone that had connected her to senators and CEOs. And Nathan, if you need anything for Lily childcare, school pickup, whatever it takes, Sterling Enterprises has resources. Nathan's eyes filled with the kind of gratitude that made Olivia remember why Dad had started this company. Not for profit margins or board positions, but to build something that mattered. Mrs. Henderson. Nathan spoke into the phone with the gentle voice Olivia imagined he used for bedtime stories. It's Lily's dad. I might be late for pickup today. Work emergency. A pause. Yes, she has her testing supplies. Thank you. The way Nathan spoke about diabetes management with matter-of-fact competence told Olivia everything about single parenthood she'd never understood. The invisible calculations. Backup plans for backup plans. Love expressed through medical precision. Marcus returned with news that made everyone's situation more dangerous. Sub-basement sweep found Eduardo Vasquez's temporary ID badge in a dumpster behind the building. He's been gone since yesterday. Nathan's fingers moved across Sterling's security database with the same careful precision he'd once used to trace bomb circuitry. Each access log told a story of someone preparing for corporate murder with military efficiency. Here, he said, highlighting a pattern that made his stomach clench. Eduardo's badge shows after-hours access to executive catering Monday through Wednesday. But look at the exit logs. Olivia leaned over his shoulder, her presence steadying him in a way he hadn't expected. The scent of her perfume mixed with the antiseptic smell of fear that clung to the surveillance room. He stayed an extra hour each night, she said, understanding immediately, learning routines, timing security rounds. More than that. Nathan pulled up building schematics with the spatial awareness that had once meant spotting IED placement patterns. He had access to service corridors that connect catering to executive floors. Someone gave him architectural knowledge. Marcus lowered his voice. Heads up, our DHS-BI liaison has had a quiet eye on Sterling's defense contracts since last quarter. If this tip's criminal, their one call-out. Guest pass records show unusual activity Tuesday night. Executive override for building access. Authorized by... The name on the screen made Olivia's breath catch. D. Cross, emergency staffing consultation. Nathan felt pieces clicking together with the terrifying precision of a timer reaching zero. Damien brought Eduardo in for a private meeting. Gave him everything he needed to plan your murder. The surveillance room's monitors seemed to multiply the weight of revelation. Dozens of screens showing a building where betrayal had been carefully orchestrated by someone Olivia trusted. The merger vote, Olivia said, her voice hollow with understanding. If I die before 2 p.m., Damien assumes control. He gets Dad's company and the cybersecurity deal that's worth $300 million. Nathan's phone buzzed with a text that made his blood turn to ice. Daddy, scary man at school asking about you. Mrs. Henderson called police. Love you. Lily. The protection he'd offered Olivia had painted a target on the only person who mattered more than breathing. Marcus was already coordinating response. All units. Priority protection detail to Riverside Elementary. Potential threat to civilian family member. Nathan's hand shook as reality crashed over him. By saving Olivia Sterling, he'd endangered the little girl who called him hero and meant it more than any medal ever had. Olivia watched Nathan's face crumble as he read his daughter's text, seeing the exact moment when protection instinct collided with parental terror. She'd spent 15 years insulating herself from caring this much about anyone, but Nathan's anguish cut through every defense she'd built. "We'll get her," she said, her voice carrying the same authority that had moved markets and swayed board votes. "Sterling's security team, police coordination, whatever it takes." Nathan looked at her with desperate gratitude that made her chest ache. "If something happens to Lily because I helped you, nothing will happen to her." Olivia meant it with every fiber of corporate determination that had built an empire. "I protect the people who protect me." Marcus coordinated through his radio with professional efficiency, but Olivia saw the clock on every monitor. 9:45 a.m., 2 hours and 15 minutes until the board meeting that would determine everything. "Catering supervisors here," Marcus announced as the nervous woman in Sterling uniform entered the surveillance room. "Maria Santos, 12 years with the company." Maria's hands trembled as she recognized the executive she'd served coffee to hundreds of times. "Ms. Sterling, I'm so sorry." Eduardo seemed like a good worker. Always asked smart questions about protocols. "What kind of questions?" Nathan asked, his voice gentle despite the terror radiating from every line of his body. "Temperature requirements, thermal sealing procedures." Said he wanted to do quality work. Maria's accent thickened with distress. "He was especially interested in your morning routine. Ms. Sterling asked when you arrived how you liked your coffee prepared." Olivia felt violation crawl across her skin. Her morning coffee, the only quiet moment in days consumed by corporate warfare, had been turned into a weapon by someone she'd trusted with her company's future. "Did Eduardo ever mention COO Cross?" Nathan asked with the directness of someone who no longer had time for subtlety. Maria's face crumpled with guilt. "Mr. Cross recommended Eduardo personally. Said he was helping a veteran transition to civilian work. That Sterling Enterprises supported former military." The lie was elegant and cruel, using Nathan's own background as cover for attempted murder, turning corporate patriotism into camouflage for conspiracy. Nathan's phone rang with news that made his knees buckle. "Mr. Chen, this is Officer Rodriguez, NYPD. Your daughter's safe. We have the individual who approached her in custody. But, sir, we need you to come in for a statement." Relief and terror warred in Nathan's expression. Lily was safe, but the net was closing around everyone he'd tried to protect. Marcus's radio delivered the final piece of evidence that made everything clear. Forensics preliminary report. Coffee contained synthetic cardiac glycoside, designed to mimic natural heart failure. Professional grade. Military application. The same kind of untraceable poison that would have given Damian Cross exactly what he needed. Olivia's death without obvious murder. Nathan's hands trembled as he gripped the steering wheel of Olivia's corporate sedan, racing through Manhattan traffic toward Riverside Elementary with the desperate precision of someone who'd already lost everything once. The school's red brick facade had never looked more like a fortress under siege. "Daddy." Lily's voice cut through his terror as she ran across the playground, her purple backpack bouncing with each step. Nathan caught her in his arms, feeling her small body shake against his chest with the aftermath of fear she was too young to understand. "I was so scared," she whispered into his shoulder, her words muffled by the work shirt that smelled like industrial cleaner and morning coffee. "The man knew my name. He knew you worked at the big building." Nathan felt his heart shatter and rebuild itself in the space between heartbeats. The protective instinct that had made him shout at a CEO now blazed with the fury of someone whose child had been threatened by cowards who fought their wars through innocence. "You're safe now, baby girl," he said, his voice steady despite the rage burning through his chest. "Daddy's here." Officer Rodriguez approached with the careful respect Nathan recognized from other cops who understood what it meant to serve and protect. "Mr. Chen, The individual in custody had detailed information about your work schedule, your daughter's school routine. This wasn't random. Olivia stepped out of the sedan with the commanding presence that had built Sterling Enterprises. But Nathan saw past the CEO armor to someone who was learning what it meant to care about a child's safety. "Lily," Nathan said gently, "this is Ms. Sterling. She's helping Daddy with something important at work." Lily studied Olivia with the serious assessment of an 8-year-old who'd learned to read adults for signs of trustworthiness. "Are you the lady Daddy saved this morning?" The question hung in the playground air, surrounded by the innocent sounds of children who believed adults could protect them from everything. "Yes," Olivia said, kneeling to Lily's eye level with the same attention she gave to billion-dollar negotiations. "Your daddy's very brave." "I know," Lily said with the matter-of-fact pride that made Nathan's throat tighten. "He has a medal from the Army, but he keeps it in a box because heroes don't need to show off." Olivia felt something fundamental shift in her chest as she watched Nathan help Lily check her blood sugar with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd mastered love through medical necessity. The glucose meter's digital beep seemed to echo in the school parking lot like a tiny heartbeat. 128, Lily announced proudly. "That's good. Right, Daddy?" "Perfect," Nathan said, kissing the top of her head with the tenderness Olivia had seen him reserve for technical evidence and crime scenes. "Just like you." The elementary school's afternoon pickup chaos swirled around them, parents in SUVs, children with art projects. The ordinary magic of families reuniting after 8 hours apart. Olivia had built an empire, but she'd never felt the gravitational pull of someone who needed her more than her quarterly projections. "Ms. Sterling," Lily's voice pulled her back to the moment. "Daddy says you have a really important job. Do you like it?" The question was innocent, but it cut deeper than any board challenge Olivia had ever faced. Did she like running Sterling Enterprises? Or had she simply inherited the obligation to continue Dad's work without ever asking if it made her happy? "I used to think I did," Olivia said honestly, surprising herself with the admission. "But today, your daddy showed me what important work really looks like." Nathan's grateful expression sent warmth through her chest that had nothing to do with corporate validation. When had someone last looked at her like she'd said something that mattered more than market share? "The man who scared you," Olivia continued, addressing Lily with the respect she'd give any intelligent witness. "He was trying to hurt your daddy because your daddy protected me. But we're going to make sure nothing bad happens to either of you." Lily nodded with the solemn understanding of a child who'd already learned that sometimes adults couldn't keep all their promises. Nathan's phone rang with news that made his face darken. "Mr. Chen, this is Principal Martinez. We need to discuss enhanced security measures." The individual who approached Lily had detailed knowledge of her medical needs, her after-school routine. This suggests extended surveillance. The violation cut deeper than attempted murder. Someone had watched his daughter, cataloged her vulnerabilities, planned to use her diabetes and school schedule as weapons against the man who'd spotted their crime. Marcus approached with radio chatter that made everyone's situation more desperate. Forensics confirms the poison was professionally synthesized, military grade, designed for cardiac simulation. Source traced to a defense contractor with Sterling Enterprises connections. Nathan felt the weight of impossible choices as he looked between Lily's trusting face and the digital clock on Olivia's phone showing 11:30. 1 hour and 30 minutes until the board meeting that would determine whether Damian Cross succeeded in stealing Sterling Enterprises through murder and intimidation. "I have to go back," he told Olivia, his voice carrying the hollow sound of someone choosing duty over everything that mattered. "If Damian gets control of the company, he'll have resources to disappear. Lily will never be safe." Olivia's expression blazed with the protective fury Nathan recognized from his own mirror every morning. "Then we end this. Now." She knelt beside Lily with the careful attention Nathan had seen her give to merger documents worth hundreds of millions. "Lily, I'm going to ask some of my security friends to make sure you're extra safe while your daddy finishes helping me. Would that be okay?" Lily looked at Nathan for confirmation, her small hand finding his with the automatic trust that made his chest ache. "Will you come back for dinner? We're having spaghetti." "I'll be there," Nathan promised, meaning it more than any oath he'd taken in military service. "And maybe Ms. Sterling would like to join us." The invitation surprised him as much as anyone. He'd spent 2 years protecting his small world from complications. But Olivia Sterling had earned her place in their circle through shared danger and mutual protection. "I'd like that very much," Olivia said. Marcus with unshowy, veteran efficiency. But Nathan caught the way the veteran cop looked at Lily, recognition of innocence that deserved protection regardless of corporate politics. "Full perimeter at Riverside Elementary and your apartment building," Marcus assured Nathan. "Sterling's best people. Coordinated with NYPD. 2 cars at school. 1 at your building, eyes on her door till you're back." Nathan kissed Lily goodbye with the desperate tenderness of someone who'd learned that every moment might be the last one. Her small arms around his neck felt like the only anchor in a world that had tilted toward chaos. "Be careful, Daddy," she whispered in his ear. "Heroes always come home." The drive back to Sterling Enterprises felt like returning to a battlefield where the stakes had grown beyond corporate warfare to include everything that made life worth protecting. Olivia spread Sterling Enterprises' architectural blueprints across her executive conference table with the same precision she'd once used to plan hostile takeovers. But this time, the target was a man who'd tried to murder her with morning coffee. Nathan studied the schematics with combat-trained eyes that read building layouts like bomb disposal maps. "Damien expects you to be rattled," Nathan said, tracing service corridors with his finger, hiding behind security, letting him control the board narrative. We reversed that expectation. She'd walk in as visible bait. Nathan would ghost the building's skeleton service elevators and tunnels, wearing corporate armor that had never felt more like a target. Nathan would move through the building's skeleton service elevators, maintenance tunnels, the invisible infrastructure that kept Sterling Enterprises running. "You'll be completely exposed," Nathan continued, his voice carrying the reluctant respect of someone who recognized tactical courage. "If Damien has backup plans, contingency weapons, then we find out together," Olivia interrupted, feeling strength return to her voice for the first time since morning coffee had nearly become her last meal. "You saved my life by trusting your instincts. Now I trust mine." Marcus coordinated through his radio with the controlled urgency of someone managing protection details for heads of state. Surveillance team confirms Damien's been making unauthorized calls from his office. Encrypted communications. Contractor-grade comms gear. The revelation chilled Olivia. This wasn't just office politics. Her father's business partner, the man who'd delivered Dad's eulogy with tears that seemed genuine, had been planning corporate murder with the same tools used for national security. "He's not working alone," Nathan said with the grim certainty of someone who'd tracked insurgent networks. "Eduardo was just the delivery mechanism. Damien has professional backup." Olivia's phone buzzed with a text that made her skin crawl. "Looking forward to our board discussion. Time to move Sterling Enterprises in a bold new direction. D." The message carried undertones of victory celebration, as if Damien believed his morning assassination attempt had succeeded in breaking her will. Nathan attached the communication wire to Olivia's silk blouse with the same careful precision he'd once used to handle live explosives, his fingers steady despite the weight of sending someone he'd grown to care about into mortal danger. The tiny microphone felt inadequate against the scope of corporate betrayal they were confronting. "Signal check," Marcus said through their earpieces, his voice carrying professional calm that didn't quite mask his concern for the CEO he'd protected for 5 years. "Clear reception," Nathan confirmed, testing the encryption that would keep Olivia connected to backup even in Sterling's executive boardroom. "But if communication cuts out, if anything feels wrong, I abort the mission and trust you to extract me," Olivia finished, her smile carrying the same determined warmth that had made him offer her dinner with his daughter. "Nathan, I've spent 15 years in boardrooms full of men who wanted me to fail. Damien's just the first one stupid enough to try murder." The confidence in her voice sent unexpected pride through Nathan's chest. He'd served alongside soldiers who possessed that kind of courage under fire, but he'd never seen it combined with the protective instinct that made her mobilize corporate security to keep Lily safe. "There's something else," Olivia said, her voice dropping to the intimate tone she'd used when talking about her father's death. "If this goes wrong, if Damien succeeds in whatever backup plan he's prepared." Nathan felt his throat tighten as he recognized the cadence of someone preparing final instructions. The same way he'd recorded messages for Lily before particularly dangerous EOD missions. Lily gets full scholarship funding through Sterling Enterprises Educational Trust. Olivia continued with the precision of someone dictating a will. "College, medical expenses, whatever she needs. She deserves better than worrying about money because her father died protecting someone else's company." The generosity cut deeper than Nathan had expected. He'd spent 2 years accepting that Lily's future would be limited by his choices. But Olivia was offering his daughter possibilities he'd never imagined. "Don't talk like that," Nathan said, his voice rough with emotions he'd kept buried since Jessica's funeral. "We're both walking out of here. Both going home to spaghetti dinner." Marcus's radio crackled with news that made their timeline more desperate. "Security alert. Unknown vehicles in Sterling Enterprises parking structure. Professional surveillance equipment detected." Olivia watched Nathan disappear into Sterling's service corridors with the fluid precision of someone who'd spent years moving unseen through dangerous territory. But her chest ached with the weight of sending him into harm's way to protect her corporate legacy. The executive elevator carried her toward the 45th floor boardroom where Damien waited with whatever final gambit he'd prepared. "Board members arriving now," Marcus reported through her earpiece as polished executives filled Sterling's sacred space with the rustle of expensive suits and nervous energy. Damien's positioned himself at the head of the table. "He's claiming emergency powers due to this morning's security incident." The elevator doors opened with mechanical precision that felt like walking toward execution. Olivia straightened her shoulders, channeling every lesson Dad had taught her about projecting strength when weakness meant corporate death. "Olivia, thank God." Damien rose from her father's chair with practiced concern that made her stomach clench with revulsion. "After this morning's trauma, perhaps you should consider delegating today's crucial decisions to someone with clearer judgment." The board members shifted uncomfortably, their faces reflecting the corporate mathematics Olivia knew by heart. Attempted assassination made her seem vulnerable, but surviving it demonstrated strength. The question was, which narrative would dominate their vote? "My judgment feels perfectly clear," Olivia said, taking her rightful place at the table with the authority that had built Sterling Enterprises from her father's small consulting firm. Clear enough to recognize when someone's using corporate terrorism to stage a coup. The accusation landed like a bomb in the boardroom's refined atmosphere. Several members gasped, their faces reflecting shock that someone had finally spoken the truth they'd all been calculating around. Damien's expression never changed, but Olivia caught the micro-expression Nathan had trained her to recognize, a fleeting tightness around the eyes that revealed plans suddenly requiring adjustment. "That's a serious allegation," Damien said smoothly. "Perhaps stress from this morning's incident has affected your ability to think rationally about corporate leadership." Through her earpiece, Nathan's voice carried the controlled urgency of someone who'd found exactly what they'd been hunting. "Olivia, I'm in his office. Document safe is open. Military contractor receipts scattered across his desk. He's been planning this for months." Nathan photographed Damien's incriminating documents with the methodical precision that had once meant cataloging bomb components for post-blast analysis. But his hands shook with fury at the scope of betrayal spread across the COO's mahogany desk. Purchase orders for synthetic cardiac glycoside. Eduardo Vasquez's real employment history: 3 tours in Army Chemical Corps. Dishonorably discharged for theft of controlled substances. Mercenary network, Nathan whispered into his microphone, documenting evidence that painted Damien's conspiracy in clear detail. Professional assassins, corporate sabotage specialists. This goes way beyond Sterling Enterprises. Through his earpiece, he heard Olivia's voice carrying steel-wrapped determination as she confronted Damien in front of Sterling's board. Funny thing about attempted murder. Damien. It leaves evidence trails that lead back to whoever authorized the hit. Nathan's tactical training screamed warnings about the silence from building security. Marcus should have been coordinating through radio chatter, but the communications had gone ominously quiet. Either their backup was compromised, or something had gone catastrophically wrong with the plan. His phone buzzed with a text that made his blood freeze. Lily's school pickup changed to 2:30. New security protocols. Please confirm. Principal Martinez. The message was wrong in every detail that mattered. Lily's pickup was always 3:30. Principal Martinez was a woman named Sarah, not a man. And most importantly, Nathan had never given the school his cell phone number. Someone was using his daughter as bait to draw him away from protecting Olivia. "Olivia," Nathan said into his microphone, his voice tight with the recognition of tactical manipulation. They're targeting Lily again. This whole board meeting might be a distraction." Through the earpiece, he heard Damien's voice carry the cold satisfaction of someone revealing their final gambit. "The vote's been called. Olivia. Board members who can't attend in person have submitted proxy votes. I have the majority needed to assume emergency leadership." Nathan realized with sickening clarity that they'd been outmaneuvered by someone who understood corporate warfare better than they'd anticipated. Damien hadn't just planned Olivia's murder, he'd prepared a legal coup that would legitimize his takeover regardless of whether the assassination succeeded. Olivia felt the boardroom walls closing in as Damien produced proxy votes with the triumphant precision of someone who'd been planning corporate conquest since her father's funeral. But Nathan's voice in her earpiece provided the anchor she needed to think beyond immediate defeat. "Board proxy fraud is a federal crime," she said, her voice carrying the legal authority that had navigated Sterling Enterprises through 15 years of hostile takeover attempts. "I'm sure the SEC will be interested in examining the authenticity of those signatures." Damien's smile never wavered, but she saw calculation flickering behind his eyes. "Of course, they're authentic. I personally spoke with each absent member." Through her earpiece, Nathan's voice carried news that made her chess-trained mind see the pattern. "Olivia, the security system's been compromised. Someone with administrator access has been monitoring our communications. Damien knows everything we've planned." The revelation should have terrified her. But instead, Olivia felt the familiar clarity that came when corporate warfare reached its final gambit. Damien had overplayed his hand by assuming Sterling Enterprises board members were as easily manipulated as military contractors. Show of hands. Olivia announced with the authority that had built an empire. "All board members physically present who support COO Cross assuming emergency leadership." 3 hands rose from around the table, exactly the allies Damien had cultivated through promises of expanded executive compensation. 7 hands remained down, including the founding board members who'd known her father since Sterling Enterprises consisted of one man with a mortgage and a dream. And all members who support maintaining current leadership structure pending thorough investigation of this morning's security breach. 7 hands rose with the satisfaction of people who'd been waiting years for someone to challenge Damien's corporate intimidation tactics. "Motion defeated," Olivia said, feeling victory taste sweeter than any merger she'd ever negotiated. "Mr. Cross, you're relieved of all duties pending federal investigation." Through her earpiece, Nathan's voice carried the controlled urgency of someone coordinating tactical response. "Federal agents are in the building." Marcus coordinated with FBI Corporate Crimes Division. They've been investigating Sterling's defense contracts for months. Damien's expression finally cracked, revealing the desperate fury of someone whose carefully orchestrated coup had collapsed into criminal prosecution. Olivia felt the boardroom atmosphere shift like air pressure before a storm as Damien's carefully constructed facade crumbled into the desperate calculation of someone whose corporate murder plot had been exposed in front of Sterling's most powerful executives. The mahogany table that had hosted a decade of civilized business warfare now felt like a battlefield where words carried the weight of federal charges. "You can't prove anything," Damien said, his voice maintaining professional calm while his eyes darted toward the boardroom's exits with the trapped awareness of someone realizing escape routes had been systematically eliminated. Actually, we can. Olivia touched her earpiece with the satisfied precision of someone who'd spent years outmaneuvering corporate predators. Nathan, please share what you found in Mr. Cross's office. Through the boardroom's speakers, Nathan's voice carried the methodical authority of someone cataloging evidence. Purchase orders for synthetic cardiac glycoside. Dated 3 weeks ago. Eduardo Vasquez's real military record chemical weapons specialist. Discharged for theft. Wire transfer receipts to offshore accounts matching professional assassination networks. The board members sat in stunned silence as the scope of Damien's conspiracy unfolded with documentation that would satisfy any federal prosecutor. Olivia watched her father's former protege realize that corporate ambition had evolved into criminal enterprise with life sentences attached. Federal agents are already in the building, Olivia continued, feeling strength flow through her voice with each word that dismantled Damien's 15-year climb toward power. They've been investigating Sterling's defense contracts since suspicions arose about inside trading on military projects. Damien's face went pale as he understood the trap's full dimensions. Not just corporate exposure, but federal investigation that had been building long before he'd decided attempted murder was a viable business strategy. Through her earpiece, Nathan's voice carried urgent news. Olivia, building security's been compromised. Damien's backup team is moving through service corridors toward the boardroom. Professional extraction. Military coordination. The revelation that Damien had prepared armed backup for his corporate coup sent ice through Olivia's veins, but also crystallized her determination to protect the company her father had built from legitimate sweat and honest vision. Nathan moved through Sterling's service corridors with the fluid precision that had once meant the difference between successful bomb disposal and becoming a casualty statistic. But this time he was hunting human explosives who'd turned corporate warfare into literal assassination. The building's infrastructure hummed around him, ventilation, electrical, the invisible skeleton that kept Manhattan's power brokers breathing while they plotted each other's destruction. 3 tangos, sub-basement level. He reported into his microphone, watching armed figures move through security camera feeds with military coordination that confirmed Damien's conspiracy reached beyond disgruntled employees to professional mercenaries. Combat gear, suppressed weapons. Their movement reads ex-military. Through his earpiece, he heard Olivia's voice maintaining board meeting normalcy while armed killers approached her location. Mr. Cross. Surely you understand that Sterling Enterprises' reputation depends on maintaining the highest ethical standards. Plainclothes are 4 blocks out, ETA 12. Not fast enough. Too long if Damien's people reach the executive floor. Nathan's EOD training provided tactical solutions that civilian security couldn't imagine. Sterling's service corridors included emergency lockdown systems designed to contain chemical leaks or fires. The same protocols that protected against industrial accidents could trap armed intruders in basement levels while federal agents secured the building. Access denied chemical protocol requires dual authorization. Nathan swore under his breath, hot-wiring a manual override he'd tested at 3 a.m. on dead shifts. Initiating lockdown protocol 7, Nathan announced, his fingers moving across Sterling's emergency systems with the confidence born from 2 years of maintaining the building's safety infrastructure. Sealing sub-basement access points. The sound of steel barriers sliding into place echoed through service corridors like mechanical thunder. The team found themselves trapped in Sterling's basement while their target remained 45 floors above, protected by the same building systems they'd planned to exploit. But Nathan knew desperate men with military training didn't surrender easily. They'd find alternative routes, backup plans, ways to complete their mission despite tactical setbacks. His phone buzzed with the news that made his tactical calculations irrelevant. Lily safe. Federal protection details secured. School evacuated as precaution. Officer Rodriguez. Relief flooded through Nathan's chest. followed immediately by the clarity that came when protecting the person you loved most was no longer divided between multiple fronts. Nathan heard the boardroom's emergency stairwell door explode inward with the controlled violence of professionals who'd run out of subtle options, followed by Olivia's sharp intake of breath as Damien's final gambit revealed itself through armed backup that turned corporate negotiation into hostage situation. Nobody moves. A voice commanded with military authority that Nathan recognized from combat zones where rules of engagement became suggestions. This is now a federal investigation crime scene, but through his earpiece, Nathan caught something the gunman missed, the sound of Olivia's fingernails tapping Morse code against the mahogany table. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short, SOS. The distress signal she'd learned from her father, who'd served in Navy communications before building Sterling Enterprises. Damien, tell your friends to stand down, Olivia said, her voice carrying the steel-wrapped authority that had navigated 15 years of corporate warfare. Federal agents are already in the building. This can end with surrender or with body bags. Nathan moved through Sterling's maintenance shafts with the silent precision that had once meant approaching live explosives without triggering secondary detonations. The boardroom's ventilation system provided access that Damien's mercenaries hadn't anticipated a route that bypassed their tactical positioning. 2 minutes out, he whispered into his microphone, hoping Olivia could maintain negotiations long enough for him to reach firing position. Keep them talking. Through the ventilation grate, Nathan watched Damien pace behind armed men who'd transformed Sterling's sacred boardroom into a war zone. The COO's desperation was evident in every gesture. A man who'd gambled everything on corporate murder and found himself facing federal prosecution. You don't understand, Damien said, his voice cracking with the strain of someone whose carefully constructed world was disintegrating. Sterling Enterprises was supposed to be mine. Your father promised me partnership, not perpetual second place to his princess daughter. The bitter truth behind 15 years of resentment spilled across the boardroom like acid eating through professional facades. Damien hadn't just wanted power, he'd felt entitled to inheritance that was never his to claim. My father built this company, Olivia replied with quiet dignity that made Nathan's chest swell with protective pride. You were hired to help run it, not to inherit it through murder. Nathan's fingers found the ventilation grate's release mechanism, his EOD training providing the patience to wait for perfect tactical timing. One chance to neutralize the threat without endangering the woman who'd become worth protecting beyond duty or obligation. Olivia felt time crystallize into perfect clarity as Nathan dropped through Sterling's ceiling with the controlled precision of someone who'd spent years calculating trajectories that meant the difference between successful missions and catastrophic failure. The armed mercenaries spun toward movement they hadn't anticipated, giving federal agents the distraction they needed to breach the boardroom from multiple entry points. Federal agents, drop your weapons. The command echoed through Sterling's boardroom with the authority of justice that had been building momentum since morning coffee had nearly become Olivia's final meal. Damien's hired killers found themselves outnumbered by professionals who fought for law instead of corporate ambition. It's over, Damien, Olivia said, watching her father's former protege realize that 15 years of resentment had led to federal charges that would define the rest of his life. Attempted murder, corporate espionage, conspiracy with foreign mercenaries. You'll spend decades in federal prison. The man who delivered her father's eulogy with tears that seemed genuine now stood revealed as someone who'd been planning corporate patricide since the day Sterling Enterprises passed to Dad's daughter instead of his chosen successor. Your father would have given me the company, Damien said, his voice carrying the hollow defeat of someone whose carefully constructed justifications had collapsed into criminal prosecution. I earned it through 20 years of building his vision. My father built Sterling Enterprises for people who protect others, Olivia replied, looking at Nathan with gratitude that transcended corporate hierarchies, not for people who kill them for profit. Federal agents coordinated Damien's arrest with professional efficiency. But Olivia's attention focused on Nathan, checking her for injuries with the gentle precision he'd use examining Lily after a playground fall. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice carrying emotions that had grown beyond protective duty into something deeper and more permanent. "No," Olivia said, meaning it more completely than she'd meant anything in 15 years of board meetings and merger negotiations. "Thanks to you." The afternoon sun streamed through Sterling's boardroom windows, illuminating the scene of corporate justice that would ensure the company her father built remained in hands that understood protection meant more than profit margins. "I believe someone promised me spaghetti dinner," Olivia said, feeling her heart open to possibilities she'd spent years convincing herself didn't exist in the corporate world. Nathan's smile carried the warmth that had made her understand why Lily called him hero with complete confidence in the title's accuracy. Nathan's Queen's apartment had never felt more like home than it did watching Olivia Sterling teach his daughter the proper way to seal pasta sauce containers. Their laughter mixing with the sounds of dinner preparation that had become celebration of survival and new beginnings. "The direction matters," Olivia explained to Lily with the same attention she'd given to billion-dollar negotiations. Except now the stakes were 8-year-old approval and perfectly preserved leftovers. Left to right. "Just like your daddy taught me about safety." Lily beamed with the satisfaction of someone whose hero Dad had found another grown-up who understood that small details mattered when protecting the people you loved. "Daddy." "Mez." "Sterling makes the pasta sauce seal the right way." Nathan felt his throat tighten with emotions he'd kept buried since Jessica's funeral, the possibility that their small family might grow without losing the foundation they'd built through grief and healing. "She's very smart," Nathan agreed, catching Olivia's grateful smile across his tiny kitchen that had never hosted anyone more powerful than Lily's second-grade teacher. The evening news played on his second-hand television, reporting Sterling Enterprises' successful defense against corporate espionage and the federal arrests that had dismantled an international conspiracy. But Nathan's attention focused on Lily, showing Olivia her diabetes testing supplies with the matter-of-fact competence of someone who'd learned to manage medical necessity. "I have to check my blood sugar before dinner," Lily explained, her small fingers working the glucose meter with practiced efficiency. "Daddy taught me that taking care of yourself is how you take care of people who love you." Olivia watched with the fascination of someone discovering that love expressed itself through medical precision and grocery store mathematics rather than corporate power plays. "Your daddy's very wise," Olivia said, meeting Nathan's eyes with understanding that transcended the distance between Queen's apartments and Manhattan penthouses. As they sat down to dinner together, spaghetti and sauce sealed properly. Three people who'd found each other through morning coffee that had nearly become farewell. Nathan realized that protecting someone had evolved into being protected in return. The Sterling Enterprises crisis was over, but the family they'd built in its aftermath was just beginning. Olivia stood in Sterling Enterprises' executive boardroom 3 weeks after Damien's arrest, watching Nathan install new security protocols with the methodical precision that had saved her life and transformed her understanding of what leadership really meant. The mahogany table bore no scars from the morning when corporate ambition had evolved into attempted murder. But the room felt fundamentally different, cleaner somehow, purged of the poison that had been growing beneath polished surfaces. "The new thermal sealing equipment arrives Monday," Nathan reported, his voice carrying the professional competence that had made her realize custodial work could be as precise and crucial as any boardroom negotiation. Left-to-right direction, tamper-evident seals, temperature logging for quality control. The coffee service protocols he'd designed read like military security briefings. But they also reflected something deeper, the understanding that protecting people required attention to details that others might dismiss as routine. "The board approved your promotion to Director of Facility Security," Olivia said, watching Nathan's face transform with the kind of gratitude that made her chest tighten with protective warmth. "Salary includes full medical coverage for Lily, education trust fund, and flexible scheduling for single-parent responsibilities." Nathan's eyes filled with emotions he'd spent 2 years learning to contain. The promotion meant more than corporate advancement. It represented recognition that his protective instincts and technical expertise deserved compensation that matched their value. "Thank you," he said simply. But Olivia heard the weight of transformation in those two words. No more night shift custodial work. No more choosing between financial stability and being present for Lily's medical needs. No more accepting that loving his daughter meant limiting her possibilities. Marcus entered with news that brought closure to the investigation that had consumed 3 weeks of federal scrutiny. Damian Cross accepted a plea agreement. 25 years federal prison. Full cooperation with the investigation into his mercenary network. Eduardo Vasquez received 15 years for conspiracy and attempted murder. The justice felt satisfying, but incomplete. Sterling Enterprises would recover from the betrayal, but the violation of trust cut deeper than financial damage. Olivia's father had built the company on the belief that business could be conducted with honor. Damian had nearly destroyed that legacy through corporate patricide. The merger vote's been rescheduled for next month, Olivia announced. Feeling strength return to her voice as she contemplated Sterling's future. Full SEC review, enhanced security protocols, and board oversight that ensures this never happens again. Nathan nodded with the tactical awareness of someone who understood that preventing future attacks required systemic changes, not just improved coffee service. Nathan's Saturday morning routine had expanded to include grocery shopping with both Lily and Olivia. Watching his daughter explain blood sugar management to someone who'd built a financial empire but was learning that love expressed itself through medical precision and careful meal planning. "The glucose meter has to be calibrated every morning," Lily explained with 8-year-old authority, demonstrating the process that had become as natural as brushing teeth. "Daddy taught me that taking care of yourself is how you protect people who worry about you." Olivia listened with the focused attention she'd once reserved for billion-dollar negotiations, asking questions that revealed genuine interest in understanding rather than polite obligation. The Sterling Enterprises CEO who commanded boardrooms approached diabetes education with the same determination that had built her father's company. "What happens if your blood sugar gets too low?" Olivia asked, her voice carrying a protective concern that had made Nathan realize corporate authority could coexist with maternal instinct. "I eat something with sugar, like juice or candy," Lily replied, patting the emergency supplies in her purple backpack. "And I tell a grown-up right away, because heroes ask for help when they need it." Nathan felt his throat tighten, watching Olivia absorb lessons about childhood medical management with the same intensity she'd applied to defending Sterling Enterprises against corporate assassination. The woman who'd survived attempted murder was learning to navigate grocery store arithmetic that determined his daughter's daily safety. "Daddy says you're really good at protecting people," Lily continued, studying Olivia with the serious assessment of someone who'd learned to evaluate adults for trustworthiness. "Are you going to help him protect our family?" The question hung in the supermarket aisle between breakfast cereals and canned goods, surrounded by the ordinary magic of weekend shopping that had become extraordinary through the addition of someone who chose to be present rather than obligated. "Yes," Olivia said, meeting Nathan's eyes with understanding that transcended corporate hierarchies and Queen's apartment mathematics. "If your daddy and you will let me." Lily's smile carried the satisfaction of someone whose protective instincts had been validated by adult confirmation. Olivia's penthouse apartment had never felt more like a museum than it did the evening she brought Nathan and Lily home for dinner. Watching her sterile corporate sanctuary transform into something that resembled actual living through the presence of people who measured success in hugs rather than quarterly profits. "Your kitchen's really big," Lily observed with the frank assessment of someone who'd learned that honesty was safer than politeness when evaluating new adults. "Do you cook here? Or just keep it pretty?" The question cut deeper than any board challenge Olivia had ever faced. Her kitchen was indeed pristine, equipped with appliances that cost more than most families' annual budgets, but rarely used for anything more substantial than reheating takeout containers. "I'm learning to cook," Olivia admitted, feeling vulnerability that she'd spent 15 years learning to hide from corporate negotiations. Your daddy's been teaching me that some skills matter more than business degrees. Nathan moved through her kitchen with the confident competence he brought to everything that involved protecting people, showing her how to prepare Lily's favorite chicken and rice with the medical precision that diabetes management required. The carbohydrate count has to be exact, he explained, measuring ingredients with the same attention to detail he'd used to examine evidence of attempted murder. Lily's insulin dosage depends on knowing exactly what she's eating. Olivia watched him transform meal preparation into medical science, understanding for the first time that single parenthood required expertise that no business school could teach. The calculations Nathan performed daily made her corporate mathematics seem simple by comparison. "Ms. Sterling," Lily said, tugging gently on Olivia's silk blouse with syrup-sticky fingers that represented the kind of mess she'd spent years avoiding. "Daddy says you're going to help us be a family." "What does that mean?" The question demanded honesty that corporate training had never prepared her to provide. Olivia knelt to Lily's eye level, meeting serious dark eyes that deserved truth rather than deflection. "It means we take care of each other," Olivia said, feeling the words reshape her understanding of protection and responsibility. "Like your daddy took care of me when someone tried to hurt me. Like, I want to take care of both of you now." Lily nodded with the solemn satisfaction of someone whose world had expanded to include another adult who understood that family was built through daily choices rather than biological obligation. As they sat down to dinner together, chicken and rice portioned precisely, insulin calculated correctly, three people who'd found each other through corporate warfare and chose to stay together through love, Olivia realized that the Sterling Enterprises crisis had given her something more valuable than any merger. It had given her a family worth protecting. Nathan adjusted his tie in the mirror of Sterling Enterprises' executive washroom, still amazed that his reflection showed someone who belonged in the same building where he'd once mopped floors and emptied trash cans. The Director of Facility Security badge clipped to his jacket carried weight beyond corporate hierarchy. It represented recognition that protecting people was a profession worthy of respect and compensation that matched its importance. "Daddy, you look very handsome," Lily announced from the doorway, her school uniform crisp and her backpack decorated with new patches from the private academy that Sterling's Education Trust had made possible. "Ms. Sterling says important meetings require important clothes." Nathan knelt to check Lily's glucose meter readings with the automatic precision that had become second nature. But his heart swelled watching his daughter navigate her medical needs with the confidence of someone who'd never been made to feel ashamed of requiring careful attention. 115, Lily reported proudly. Perfect range for learning about fractions today. The casual way she integrated diabetes management into daily life reflected months of stability that had allowed both of them to dream beyond survival. Nathan's salary meant consistent medical supplies, regular doctor visits, and the kind of nutritional consistency that made blood sugar management routine rather than crisis intervention. "The board meeting should be done by 3, Nathan said, kissing the top of Lily's head with the tenderness that had deepened rather than diminished since their family had expanded. "Ms. Sterling and I will pick you up together." Lily's smile carried the satisfaction of someone whose world had grown to include multiple adults who coordinated her care with military precision and unlimited love. Through the executive floor's windows, Nathan could see Manhattan stretching toward horizons that had once seemed impossibly distant from Queen's apartments and night shift custodial work. But the view that mattered most was watching Lily skip toward the elevator, confident that her day would end with two people who considered her happiness their primary responsibility. Olivia stood before Sterling Enterprises' board of directors with the confidence that had been refined through attempted murder and emerged stronger for having survived corporate warfare. But her greatest victory wasn't the successful cybersecurity merger that had made Sterling a leader in defense contracting. It was the knowledge that she'd built something more valuable than market dominance. Quarterly profits exceed projections by 18%. She announced to board members whose respect had been earned through crisis leadership rather than inherited through family legacy. But more importantly, employee satisfaction surveys show the highest ratings in company history. The statistics reflected transformation that went beyond financial success. Nathan's security protocols had created a workplace where people felt genuinely protected. His attention to details that others dismissed as routine had built institutional safety that allowed innovation to flourish without fear. Director Chen's recommendations have been implemented across all Sterling facilities. Olivia continued, feeling pride that transcended corporate achievement. His expertise in risk assessment has prevented 3 potential security breaches and identified cost savings that exceed his annual salary by 400%. The board members nodded with the satisfied approval of people who'd learned that hiring for competence rather than credentials produced results that justified unconventional promotion paths. Through the boardroom's windows, Olivia could see the elementary school where Lily was learning fractions with the confidence of someone whose medical needs had been transformed from financial burden into manageable routine. The education trust that paid for her private schooling represented more than corporate philanthropy. It was investment in a future that included all 3 of them. Marcus entered with news that brought closure to the final administrative details. Federal prosecutors confirm Damian Cross will serve his full sentence. The mercenary network he hired has been dismantled across 4 countries. Sterling Enterprises has been cleared of any wrongdoing in the cybersecurity merger. Justice felt complete. But Olivia's attention focused on the family photo now displayed prominently on the boardroom's side table: Nathan, Lily, and herself at last month's diabetes walk, wearing matching t-shirts that read Team Lily in purple letters. The Sterling Enterprises empire would continue growing. But the legacy that mattered most was measured in 8-year-old laughter and glucose meter readings and dinner conversations that included discussions of homework alongside corporate strategy. Lily practiced writing her full name in careful cursive letters while Daddy and Ms. Sterling cooked dinner together in their new apartment that was big enough for everyone to have their own room, but small enough that nobody felt far away from hugs when they were needed. Lily Chen Sterling, she wrote, testing how the hyphenated name looked on paper and in her heart. Missy? Sterling had explained that families could be built through choice rather than just biology, and that love was the strongest foundation for any kind of construction project. How's the homework coming, sweetheart? Ms. Sterling asked, using the voice she reserved for school questions and bedtime stories and the moments when Lily needed extra encouragement with fractions that seemed determined to be confusing. I'm practicing our new name, Lily replied, showing her the careful letters that represented their family's evolution from protection detail to permanent arrangement. Mrs. Rodriguez says cursive writing makes everything more official. Daddy came over to examine her penmanship with the same attention he gave to security reports and glucose meter calibrations, his smile carrying the happiness that had grown steadier since the scary morning when bad men had tried to hurt Miss Sterling. Very official, he agreed, signing his own name below hers in the neat handwriting that had filled out incident reports and marriage license applications with equal precision. What do you think? Olivia. Missy. Sterling, who would always be Missy. Sterling at work, but was becoming mommy at home through daily choices rather than legal documents, added her signature with the flourish that had signed billion-dollar contracts and adoption papers with identical authority. Perfect, she said, meaning the name and the homework and the family they'd built from morning coffee that had almost been goodbye but had become hello instead. The timer chimed for dinner, and Lily carefully put away her homework before washing her hands and checking her blood sugar with the routine that had become as natural as breathing in a house where taking care of yourself was how you took care of people who loved you. As they sat down to eat together, 3 people who'd found each other through danger and chosen each other through love, Lily understood that heroes didn't always wear capes or carry weapons or work in tall buildings. Sometimes heroes just made sure you came home safe and had enough to eat, and knew that tomorrow would include people who considered your happiness their most important job.